First of all, I would like to pause and say thank you and no thank you for coming to my talk. No thank you because I was like, oh, there's only going to be 2 people. I'm not going to be nervous. And now there's a bunch of you. So first of all, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you taking the time out of a busy conference schedule to come and listen to me. And I really appreciate you. Now, I know some of you are probably here to learn about voice interfaces for LLMs, but maybe some of you just like JARVIS and like Marvel and stuff. Hopefully both of you get to leave here with a smile, and some people haven't learned something new, and maybe you've just seen a fun scene from a movie that you really enjoyed. Allow me to start by introducing myself. My name is Nathaniel Okenwa. I'm a developer evangelist at a company called Twilio. How many people have heard about Twilio before? And I'm going to say before today, when you got free coffee, hopefully, from the barista downstairs. All right, a few people. Well, there were some people here who didn't put their hands up, so I'll just do a quick synopsis and pay my bills. Twilio is a telecommunications API service. So basically we have different APIs to help companies, businesses, organizations to talk to their customers. Doesn't necessarily just mean customers, it could be anything. And so that usually ends up with communication over text message, email, WhatsApp, all sorts of platforms. And really, really popular is voice. So that's why I'm talking about some of the things we're talking about today, because we're seeing some of our customers implement some of these out in the wild with their customers, and we're trying to make it easy for them, and I want to talk about that today. Outside of Twilio, my friends call me Chatterbox Coder, and that on all socials, and I love coding, I love MMA, I love anime, I love superheroes and action movies. And those last two are very, very relevant to this talk because I absolutely love Iron Man. And Iron Man, out of all the Marvel superheroes, is one superhero I feel like I can personally relate to. I am an engineer, and building is my superpower, just like Iron Man. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the budget. I'm going to blame budget, nor the know-how, to actually build a full-on Iron Man suit. But fortunately, I work in software, so I can try and replicate JARVIS to the best I can. But it's not just Iron Man, the movie. We've actually been promised this dream of the specific type of voice AI agents in movies for decades. And this is where I start to segment the audience into different age groups. So there have been very famous AIs from many years. How many people know HAL 9000? Very, very famous one. One of my favorites is Otto from the film, the Disney Pixar movie WALL-E, 2 ship captains that go rogue. Much more modern is the Bat computer, but very, very iconic. But personally, I think the best one is JARVIS. But what do we see in all of these voice AIs and voice AIs in movies throughout the decades? We see that voice was the default interface. Hold on, I'm just going to close this door just so I can hear a little less of that sound. Voice is the default interface. So from HAL 9000 all the way to JARVIS, these AIs weren't accessed through text or dashboards. They spoke. Voice was their most human, intuitive interface. And this isn't just for narrative utility, isn't just because it looks good on camera, it does, but it's because it is a user experience truth. Writers don't choose this just for cinematic flair, but it's the clearest shortcut to believable, frictionless human to AI interaction. You see, human voice is the most human of all interfaces. We learn to speak to each other, to interact with each other through voice as children, and speaking to computer systems with this natural language, it's as natural as speaking to another person. So it's something we are already very, very comfortable with. Another thing that movies do love with their voice AI, I'm not going to cover it today, but it's this idea of this always-on ambient access. You can just be like, hey, JARVIS, and then talk to it. They're always listening, always ready, and they're responding instantly without the need for a keyboard or a screen. And we've been trying to replicate this experience, this JARVIS-like experience for years. How many people remember when Siri came out? It was good, but it never quite felt right. It's hard to believe that Siri came out in 2011, so that's 15 years ago today. And I remember when it came out, it was a breakthrough in mobile voice interaction. But it was limited to very scripted commands, it often misunderstood context, and lacked conversational flow. I'm not going to make any comments on how far they've moved forward with Siri today. But we've moved on. I remember when Alexas came out in about 2014, and they dominated the smart home. Anytime I'm inside my house, I have to say the A word instead of it because they always trigger something in my room. They dominated the smart home, but they were very command-driven. They lacked memory, personality, and true contextual understanding. So these systems were really good at listening, but not great at understanding and not really great at having good conversation. They were tools, not companions. A very far cry from JARVIS or HAL. But the great benefit of all of those is they helped pave the way for a lot of the implementations of AI, specifically in voice interfaces, that we are seeing today. And this really all changed with, yes, we all know it, when LLMs came around. ChatGPT just being the most famous one. I feel like ChatGPT has become like Hoover, where the brand name has become the identity for the product, even if there are many different versions of it. So natural language understanding finally caught up and changed the kind of environment in which we can build voice AI interfaces. So we had these true conversational contexts. So LLMs can track long, open-ended conversations. They can handle relatively ambiguity really well, follow-ups and corrections just like not a human would. And also, they have this very flexible and unscripted interactions. So you don't have rigid commands. Users can speak naturally and still be understood. If anything, it's actually a bit too flexible and unscripted, and we're always trying to find guardrails to keep it on track. Very, very subtly, but they actually display a very subtle emotional intelligence. Oftentimes when you start using angry or aggressive language towards an LLM, it will start to be, I can sense you're angry, and try and almost come with a positive attitude towards that. And that's something that old systems couldn't do. You could scream at Siri all you wanted. Siri was just plain, honestly, I need to have that temperament, just steady as a ship. And then LLMs often had a very wide knowledge domain, so they could have a general understanding of the world that has been populated on the internet, without relying on hand-coded responses for every task. And then a very big one is that they can be action-oriented. So LLMs can be used to trigger actions and to call tools. So now when we think about LLMs, I'm not going to talk today anything about inside the black box of LLMs, training LLMs. There are so many different versions, and honestly, every time I would give this talk, not every time I give this talk, probably halfway through this talk, a new LLM model somewhere would have come out. But I want to talk about the kind of voice interface around this, and there are these three main components. We have the speech to text, which is being able to understand what the user is actually saying. You have the LLMs and the tools that they trigger, what they do. You could say it's like the brain of the machine. And then we have the text-to-speech, the ability to turn text, which comes out of an LLM, back into voice. Now, the great thing is all of these different pieces have had huge strides in technology over the past 3 years. You may know certain interactions that you've had that feel so much better, and every time a new one comes, it blows the old versions out of the water. But as we are getting better and better, we are approaching uncanny valley. I should have had a sound effect that goes, ooh. Thank you, I appreciate you. Ray's coming next year. I'm joking. Uncanny valley. What is uncanny valley? How many people have heard of the term uncanny valley before? All right. So for those of you who don't know, it was first introduced by a Japanese robotics professor called Masahiro Mori. And they introduced it to talk about the hypothesized psychological and aesthetic reaction between an object's degree of resemblance to a human being and the emotional response to an object. So the more human-like something looked, the more empathy we feel towards it, the more we give it human emotions and interactions. We feel like it's human. But then there's this really weird spot right before it gets realistic. So you go from like a robotic arm to a teddy bear to maybe even something that looks a bit more humanoid, a person in a big costume. But then you get to a zombie, a marionette, or a too realistic looking robot. And then it gets really weird. It looks worse than the ones that came before it. And that's the uncanny valley. Oftentimes when people are struggling to understand this concept, I think about Star Wars. And with Uncanny Valley, when you had just a big person in a furry suit running around, you were like, cool, like, I know this character, I love him, yes. And then when you had an animated character that probably had a lot of effort and work going and a huge stride in CGI, we're just like, I can't connect to this character, it's worse. Or another example that I like is The Lion King. So how many people have watched The Lion King animation and then The Lion King live action, right? And who thinks here The Lion King live action is better than the animation? Exactly, right? Because The Lion King live action sits in Uncanny Valley, whereas the animation, we feel this beautiful connection to it. And it also was a wonderful part of many of our childhoods. So what happens is people start using AI, maybe our voice AIs that we're building, and if we are in Uncanny Valley, they may have this, oh, I have AI detected. Now, I want to pause. I do not think it's a good idea for us to not necessarily let people know that they're interacting with an AI system. But on the other hand, what we want to do is we want to avoid people approaching these systems with the frustration because of some bad experiences before. How many of you have called a bank or a company and you hear that voice saying, please describe your problem in 3 or 4 words? And it's worse than many other interactions. You're almost like, I would rather just press 1, press 2, because I know that's going to understand me, my Scottish accent, or something else, right? And so what we want to do is find a way that we can bridge across the uncanny valley of conversation so that people actually continue to interact with this AI the kind of same way they would with a human being. And let's talk about some of the problems here, because human dialogue isn't just input and output. It's messy, it's dynamic, it's layered. Real conversations, first of all, are not linear. They're not like tennis, where it just goes back and forth and back and forth. The turn taking is a lot more complex. People interrupt. We pause mid-thought. We change direction. And AI voice interfaces need to be able to handle those overlaps, those false starts, and those non-verbal gaps. Another one is that timing is everything. A delay that's too short feels very robotic, whereas a delay that's too long feels broken. The rhythm of speech is as important as the words. And then we also need this contextual flexibility. Users might walk away mid-sentence, switch topics suddenly, or give unclear input. Or, for example, if I'm having a conversation with something and something happens right there, the conversation context now includes this event that has happened in front of us. Whereas oftentimes with the AI systems that have been built in the past, it's blind to all of this extra information that might be informing that conversation. So we don't want to just talk about building this talking AI that's taking turns. We want to build this conversational partner. And that means designing for some of the rhythm and not just the content. All right. I've talked a lot about these problems, but rather than just telling you, I personally think it's better to show you. And so let's start building. I'm just going to pause and pour one out virtually to the demo gods. I appreciate you. Please come in for me. And let's build this together. So I'm going to pause and exit Google Slides because I vibe coded an equivalent a new slide presentation software. Now, who needs a new slide presentation software? No one asked for it. I decided to do it. But this one is special. So rather than just going back and forth with my arrow, what I could do is, you can see there's this little chatbot here. I could say, go to the next slide. And then it's just going to think, it's going to say, oh, cool, I'm going to go to the next slide. I can go back a slide, right? Overkill. Back to the last slide. That's very much overkill, but I mean, we've all been there where people have thrown chatbots into something, so I might as well do it myself. But let's go on further. Imagine I didn't want to just be able to interact with this. I wanted to actually be able to talk to this AI. So the way I would go, the way I've got it, I've got a little talk button that basically does the same thing as the chat. And let's see if it's working. Hey, Jarvis, go to the next slide.
Absolutely. Feel free to test the functionality. If you have any specific actions you'd like to take or questions...
Cool. I was talking about testing the slide, so it heard me and continued talking. But you can see it can talk, it can go to the next slide, it can go to the previous slide. Now, I've actually done something a little bit extra because sometimes I forget what's on my slide and what I'm talking about. So I downloaded my speaker notes and I gave it over to the voice AI interface. And so why don't I ask it what's on this slide? Hey, Jarvis, what's on this slide?
This slide covers the technical architecture of the system for voice capability.
Okay, thank you.
It includes the tools involved in the process,
all right,
such as Twilio.
Yeah, no, I remember now.
Handling audio
okay,
streams,
I'm going to pause it. What we see happen, we see it's going on. It's like, cool, I know exactly what Nathaniel needs. I'm going to present. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I changed my mind, or I have a follow-up question. And it continues going. So the first thing we are going to do is we're going to implement interruption handling. So we're going to give this voice AI the ability to stop, listen to what we've saying, and respond. So I'm going to switch to my code. Bear with me a second while I drag this over. There we go. And now, there is a lot going on. I would like to ignore it, and I'm just going to scroll down to the pieces that make sense. Just want to pause. Can people in the back see close enough? Oh, those in the far back, that's on you. All right, so what do we see? I'm using a tool called DeepGram. So I'm using Twilio, first of all, to handle my WebRTC. I could connect it to my phone call. I could do all sorts of things. Twilio is then streaming that audio to this. So most of the latency you have is because of conference Wi-Fi. So stream audio to this website, to this laptop, just so I can do this demo live and change things and have it respond immediately. In reality, I would have this deployed all in a server, and you can have servers where most of these services live side by side, and it becomes super, super fast. And so I have this bit of tool. I know it's JavaScript. I know we have some .NET developers in the room. Please don't be scared away. Hopefully it's simple. We have a transcript that comes back from DeepGram once I've finished an utterance. So this is once I pause in talking. That transcript gets sent over to OpenAI, which is the LLM that I'm using. Once OpenAI finishes, it then sends that to a tool called 11 Labs. Many people know it, which can do voice generation. Once that voice generation comes in, I send that voice generated back to Twilio. So that's that pipeline that we saw. I'm going to scroll. No, I'm not going to scroll. I'm going to come over here. Now, every single time that DeepGram hears more text, it's going to keep on saying, hey, it's going to keep on sending me new utterances. So what I want to do is be able to pause the text first and foremost, and then move on. So anytime a new transcript comes in, so anytime it's heard a new utterance, I'm just going to say, nope, I don't want to check for wake words. Stop giving away my data pauses. I am going to pause the audio. And so I've just got a little function that says whatever audio we've sent over to Twilio, just stop playing that audio. Yes, I've wrapped things in helper methods just so we can understand what's going on. And so I've said pause and then continue whatever we were doing. So it's going to pause whatever he said, and then it's going to respond with the new thing. Anyone guess what's going to happen?
It's going to forget?
No. We'll see. Well, let's see. All right, so I'm going to hit save. I'm going to scroll over here, and I'm going to ask it to explain what's on this slide again. Hey Jarvis, what's on this slide?
This slide details the technical architecture of the system being discussed. It includes the components involved in the voice processing system. Twilio WebRTC manages phone call audio streams. The current slide covers the technical architecture of the system.
So,
the flow in the text is then processed.
What's the win? The win is we paused the audio, it listened, and then it answered. But you chuckled. And why? Because you knew that what it's responding to isn't actually what I was asking, right? It said, what's that? And it took the whole information. What's that on the slide? We need to give it extra context. Two things specifically. We need to let the AI know you were interrupted. Second, we need to let the AI know this is what you were saying when you were interrupted, so that it can then tailor its response accordingly. So let's head back over to our code and do that now. And the way I do this is every time I send audio over to Twilio, I have just a little variable which is called currently say, well, it's called last sentence spoken. So I can say, I want to know what's currently saying, and you are currently saying the last sentence spoken. I'm just using this so it's very, very easy for you to read and understand. So I'm grabbing what's the last sentence that was just played and is currently playing. And now that I've got this currently saying, I'm also going to check if there's an interrupt. Now, because sometimes there is an interrupt and sometimes there isn't, so I'm just going to say only if the currently saying is not null. So every time I finish playing something, I clear currently saying because there's nothing playing. So first thing I do is I check the last sentence spoken. I check if there is an interrupt. Has it been interrupting something? And then if it has, I can, instead of just passing a transcript, this can take in a couple of extra inputs. It can take in an interrupt, which is just a Boolean, true or false. And it also takes currently saying. What was the AI currently saying? I can actually scroll down on my screen and show you that helper function. And it says, if there is an interrupt, prompt says the user interrupted you when you're saying whatever the last sentence was spoken, and they interrupted with this. So now I've given the AI some extra context. Let's go and see what that does. Hey Jarvis, what's on this slide?
This slide details the technical architecture of the system we are discussing. It includes key components like Twilio WebRTC for handling phone call audio streams. The technical architecture of the system refers to the design and structure of the technology components used to support the system's functionality. In this context, it includes tools like Twilio WebRTC for handling audio streams, DeepGram for text transcription. Twilio WebRTC is a technology for real-time communication.
All right, it didn't work the first time. I know why, because it just missed where I said, where is that? And that's on me. But what do we see here? We see now that we're feeding it context of where it's going. I said what it's that right after it had just finished talking about Twilio WebRTC. So it goes, oh, this person's asking about Twilio WebRTC. So I'm going to now go and give it that extra context. And just like that, voila, stage one. We've done interruption handling. Now, I've done a very, very crude example of this, but we can already see some of the complexities of this orchestration. Remembering, using state machines and a couple of different techniques, what the user is saying, where we are in the status of playing audio, and then being able to generate different nuances in our prompts based on that. Okay, so this is all cool, and I can move on. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, and oh no, I forgot to finish my slideshow. Well, the brilliant thing about AI is we also have image generation. I can also say, hey, go and create an image. But now we're going to see an interesting thing. Image generation is getting faster and faster. I remember the first time I did this demo, and it took really long, and then I did it again, and it got much faster, and that was a problem. So I had to fix my demo and put in more of a pause. But what I can do is I can say, hey, I'm not going to do it right now. I can say, hey, Jarvis, add a slide, create a slide, and I can give it a topic. But that slide generation is going to take an unknown amount of time. And what the way LLMs often act is they wait and do the task and then come back and say, here is the output. And so what we can do, and this right now I'm saying we're doing it for image generation because I just wanted to pick something that's going to take time. But what we are seeing our customers do it for is when data needs to go look up or it's got to go and do a certain task that it knows is going to take 2 seconds, a millisecond. And so we use voice interstitials. We use this all the time. If someone asks you a question that's complex, you might say, give me a moment, and you think about it. You've bought yourself time to load. You might say, lots of speakers, you'll notice, when you ask them a question, they say, that's a great question. Yeah, they're doing that, and yes, they're acknowledging it's a great question, but they also, that's a voice interstitial. We use this every day. So why don't we do this with our AIs? So here's what we can do. We can, instead of just saying whenever something happens and you trigger a tool call, just tell me what the output is, you can say trigger a tool call and I would like to listen for status updates. This is the way I've implemented it. There's a couple of different ways you might implement it. But what will happen is whatever that tool is doing, it's going to be telling this AI, hey, we're at this section, we're at this section. Now, I haven't done it by percentages because that's long. I've just got to start, middle, and finish. But what you could do is you could say it's at 20% complete, it's at 50% complete, and then have AI decide when it's going to do that. So let's switch and head over to my dynamic voice interstitials. So right now, we have this AI response. So this takes the prompt from the user, and then it goes and does whatever the AI is supposed to do. But this doesn't just get a prompt, it actually also returns, triggers a callback, which gives us a status. Now again, there's slightly different ways that different people might want to implement this, but in some way, you will have your tool giving updates. So some of the ways I've seen this done is I've seen people use streaming responses from their tools to stream updates. I used callbacks just because it was quite easy for me to implement very quickly in my JavaScript, but there are a couple of different ways. But the point still remains that you're telling it, this is how far we have gone. And then I'm just going to check if the status has a voice message. So this is a message that we want to play. And if it does, then let's console.log this just so that I can see what it is. That's fine. And then we are going to play that voice interstitial. So I have a helper that at any point in time, once I run it and I give it some text, it just cuts whatever anything was saying and just plays a voice interstitial immediately. And this way, I can take away, I can jump out of that natural turn-taking effect that AI has. Remember, AI usually, by LLMs, just standard without any extra architecture, will just wait until you ask me again. Maybe then I'll go and check the status. Oh, you want to check if it's done? That's when I'm going to go check. But now by doing this, adding this to our system messages, you can even add it as a system message and say, hey, generate a new response based on this event that has happened. And then you can play voice interstitials. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to play a voice interstitial here. Great thing about voice interstitials, right now I have them hard-coded. But when you're working at big scale, you might want to do something more interesting. One of the most interesting ones that I saw was customers who looked at some of the different records and then just said, what are some of the most common phrases that we have our AI saying? And then they loaded those up pre-generated, because it's the same voice. And so they had them cached and just ready to play. So rather than generating expensive, well, it's not expensive because it's a small part, but they're able to create some of these interstitials really, really quickly. The one that I found really interesting is we used on our internal AI tool called AI Assistants, is it generates an AI interstitial for every tool you put in. And after a certain amount of milliseconds, if the tool hasn't responded, it throws the interstitial for that tool based on the tool's description, which is really, really interesting. So why don't we do this and check it out? So we can see here that I'm checking the status of a tool, and then I'm going to go and add to it. So let's do this. Hey, Jarvis, can you add another slide about computer technology? It missed what I said. Hey, can you add another slide about computer technology?
On the current, by tracking the bot's current state and context.
Let's do that again. Sorry, I could see that I could see in the transcript that it missed me. Hey, can you add another slide about computer technology? Yeah, why is my voice breaking? Let's try one more time. Hey, Jarvis, let's do another slide about computer technology.
The user interrupted the bot with, "Hey, Jarvis."
Live demos, hey? Can you create a slide? What's going on? Bear with me one moment. Reset and create a slide about computer technology.
To address interruptions effectively.
That's really weird. It keeps thinking I'm interrupting it when I'm not. One more time. Create a slide about computer technology. All right. Oh, no, it worked, and then I stopped it. No. Okay. All right, one more time. Create a slide about computer technology.
To address the interruption where the user requested a new slide about computer technology.
Oh, there we go.
That's all right. If you have any questions.
All right. I'm going to pause and just move on, but what we can do is, you understand the principle. We have status updates on the tool call. We can give those status updates, and then it can respond. And I think I've just realized why. I think the AI is hearing itself through my earphones and keeps interrupting itself and messing itself up. But that's all right. So what do we see? What would we have seen if we pretend we put our imagination hats on? We see that AI has the ability to then feel less turn-takey because in the background, we are also giving it other events to keep it updated about the status. And then in your prompts, you might decide, at this point, you decide to tell a user. At this point, you decide not. If I was Iron Man, I would say, if it's critical and life-threatening, tell me, unless I've told you to shut up, which he does all the time. All right, so I'm going to move out of my live demo rather than set myself up for failure again and jump back into my slides. All right, so we've talked about two main things. We've talked about interruption handling, voice interstitials. Now, all of this comes under this idea of voice orchestration. So this is latency, interrupting, and the orchestration of the conversation. And it gets really complicated, as you can see. I was given really, really simple examples. And absolutely, the principles that I have just told you, if you want to build your own voice AI, you are going to need to implement all of those. And then this is where I start to pay the bills, because Twilio has solved that problem for you. So we have a product called Conversation Relay. And so what we do is we take everything I've shown you, we wrap it around in a box, and then allows you to take the wheel. So nearly every one of us in this room, we are very used to responding over APIs via text. Text is easy, voice is hard. So what we've done is we've created a wrapper around all of the voice parts of the stack, and then we just fire text tokens at you, and you just fire text tokens at us via WebSockets. And we partner with a couple of big providers, so you can use Google or DeepGram for speech recognition. You can use Google, Amazon, 11 Labs for the text-to-speech, so you can bring your own provider and just have us handle the orchestration. And the way it works is you have your customer who's on the phone. It could be WebRTC, it could be a phone call. And then what we do is over WebSockets, you have a WebSocket connection to the server, and we fire utterances at you. And then in your application, you can choose whatever AI you want. You can choose whatever data you want, whatever knowledge, tools, backend. You can keep that all to yourself. And all you worry about is text, and we handle voice. And so we'll do things like we'll send you an interruption message with here is the interruption, here is how many seconds into the audio they interrupted, and here is what the bot was saying when it was interrupted. We also cover multiple languages. So you can say, hey, switch languages, or we can do automatic language detection. So you give us like, here are 5 languages that I want you to support. And then the moment we realize, hold on, this person's speaking Chinese, not English, we can switch, send you a WebSocket message to say, hey, they're speaking Chinese. You should switch to your Chinese bot, or maybe it already does, and so on and so forth. So if you are interested, feel free to check it out at the booth or come and ask me more questions about that. But we help make some of that orchestration easier. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is that contextual initiative. I'm going to fly through this, but remember I talked about being able to remember to be able to handle things happening outside of the conversation. Well, 2 of the things that make up that context are memory. So this is what the AI can remember about the person it's talking to. And then events. What events are happening? What things are happening? And there are 2 ways to handle these 2 different things. The first one is memory. It's not just being able to throw things into context, right? So that is right. Throwing as much information into the context will give you some of that memory. But then it's having tools that can then change that context. One of the downsides of just throwing things in context is that oftentimes LLMs will remember something earlier in the context which is no longer accurate. And so what is actually better is to have a separate tool to handle memory, so what it remembers about the person it's talking to, and being able to call that to remember something, or being able to add to that to change what you remember about someone. And then we also have events, being able to throw, like, this is what's happening outside of this call as well. Once again, I'm going to pay my bills. At Twilio, we have a product called Segment, which helps people with that customer memory. So what it does, it takes all of the different information, you can architect it into your application, and then it pulls it all together into what we call a unified profile. So these are all the different things you know about your customer across your platform. The cool thing is this is available completely via API, so you can then serve that to an LLM. And then the LLM doesn't just serve it, it can also actually add to it. So you can give your LLM a tool and a prompt to say, if there is, like for example, one of our demos is shoes, if the customer says their shoe size, remember that about the customer. And then it knows to pull that in and add it. And then you can have automations to send it to a database or something and so forth. So what have we talked about? We've talked about interruption handling, being able to handle that, make sure that conversation feels natural. We've talked about voice interstitials and some of that orchestration, and we've talked about contextual initiative. And it is fabulous. So I've talked about Twilio a lot. We actually think that we're really, really good at making voice agents. And so what we did is we have create Twilio agent on the NPM library with a really good example of a really, really fast voice agent that you can try out. You can switch out for a couple of different LLMs. So it's got OpenAI and Azure. Well, Azure is OpenAI, and Gemini as well. That was the other one that I was looking at, that you can just switch in under the bot. And then you can actually also connect it to other tools. Let me show you the page. It's over here. So yeah, it connects to a couple of, the picture's not there. It connects to a couple of different tools that you can use as well. So you can connect it to Twilio out of the box, but then you can connect it to your own tools as well. So if you are interested, feel free to go and clone those. But I am nearly out of time. 4:20. No, I'm not nearly out of time. Oh, I've got 20 more minutes. All right, so I'm actually going to show you a live demo of this here. So showing you what that looks like when it all comes together. I'm going to do another phone call, but this time I'm not going to use my vibe-coded / personally built one. I'm going to use one that we've created to just show off what this looks like when it's all working together. Now, this one's actually in the cloud, so you're going to notice the latency is so different. Because we had Twilio Coffee downstairs, I am creating a bot that I can talk to on the phone called Twilio Barista Coffee. And I've given it some instructions. I've said, thank you for calling it the barista, and so on and so forth. But what's actually interesting that I do want to call out is some of the tools. So we've got these get segment profiles. So this is how it remembers things about the customer. But then it's actually got events, track, and profile, and update. So what events are is anytime a thing, and you can decide what events you want. Anytime something happens, it gets added to that customer memory, so it knows, oh, these are the things that have happened with that customer recently. Then you have track, which means I want you to add an event. So I want you to say the customer's just done something. So you can give the AI the ability to add events. And then you have update, which is just remember something about the customer. Forget about Airtable, but then we've also connected it to all of these. And the reason why this is important is we're gonna actually see, I'm gonna have a conversation over the phone, but it's going to be aware of text messages that I am texting it at the same time, because it's aware of these other events from these other platforms coming in. I've decided to use Twilio platforms, but you could use something. You could say there is an error there is an error that appeared on your website, or something, a different event. All right, I am going to jump to show off this demo. I'm in the UK, and I'm going to ask it to call me, and hopefully you should be able to hear it. And I pressed the wrong thing, so it's actually calling my phone. I meant to say WebRTC. That was my bad. I pressed the wrong button. WebRTC.
Hello, Nathaniel. Thanks for calling Twilio Barista. What kind of coffee? No problem. Thank you for letting me know. If Nathaniel becomes available and would like to order coffee or needs any help...
All right, so just for people wondering what's happening, this is what was ruining my demo before. The audio from the speakers is going back into the microphone, and then it's interrupting itself. I have a fix for this. I just have to keep hitting the mute button right at the important points. And so we will try again.
Hello, Nathaniel. Thank you for calling Twilio Barista. What kind of coffee can I get started for you today? If you have any preferences or special requests, just let me know.
Bear with me a second. I'm getting a little bit of an error. Oh, no, I know exactly what's happened. It's speaking with my voicemail on my phone. So that is, because I was like, if you want to record it, press 3. I was like, that's really, really interesting. Okay, live demos, eh? Let's hit end. All right, and that should close my conversation on both ends. Now it keeps saying to leave this. Oh, I can't even manually. Hold on, please stop. Oh, I might have to go in and. Oh, I don't even know how I'm gonna end that call. That's gonna turn into a big bill. Sorry. There's a first time for everything here. All right. What am I gonna do? I know exactly what I'm gonna do. I am going to deal with that tomorrow. I'm gonna change that to 9. Oh wait, I think it's finished because I just got a text to say, like, you have a new voicemail. Okay, so so I think it's finished. All right, I think I ended the call by hitting this. Let's refresh and hopefully end with a positive bang rather than a whimper. All right, let's add this phone number back. I'm in the United Kingdom, and we will try one more time. I'm going to press WebRTC, not call me.
Hello, Nathaniel. Thank you for calling Twilio Barista. What kind of coffee can I get started for you today? If you have any special preferences
hey,
or need
can
to
I
avoid
have
nuts,
a caramel latte? But I've got a nut allergy, so make sure there's nothing with nuts in it.
Absolutely, Nathaniel. I'll make sure your caramel latte is completely nut-free Would you like regular milk? Or do you have a preference for oat, coconut,
Yeah,
or another?
Can I get coconut milk?
Great choice. I'll make your caramel latte with coconut milk and ensure it's nut-free. Is there anything else you'd like
Actually,
to add
can I
to
have
your...
almond milk instead?
Just to confirm, since you mentioned a nut allergy, almond milk is made from nuts and may not be safe for you. Would you like to stick with coconut milk, or would you prefer another nut-free option like oat or soya milk? Your safety is my top priority.
So I'm actually going to text it in now. It's the same phone number. I would like to have dairy milk, please. So we're going to watch the text come in.
Perfect. I'll make your caramel latte with dairy milk and ensure it's completely nut-free. Would you like anything else with your order, or is that everything for today?
Yeah, that's everything. Just send me a text to wrap it all up, and thank you very much. All right. I'm going to hit end. All right, so what do we see here? So we saw interruptions. We saw the latency. That latency was much better than my demos because this is all living live. What do we see also? We actually see, let me hit zoom to make all of this bigger. We can see that it's got voice, but it also has SMS. So it's actually responding to things from different places. If I wanted, I could have switched to an email and texted it. One of the demos that we have is we do like, oh, I'm talking to a bank and they ask for my salary and I say, hey, I don't feel comfortable saying it out loud. Can I text it to you? And then you can text that in. And then what do we see over here? We see this get segment profile. I've got to zoom in to see it. And we can see it knows that I've got nut allergies. And so it makes sure it's actually added an event that there has been a coffee order. So this person has ordered a coffee as well. It's updated my segment profile to just update my traits. Coconut, it says he has a coconut milk preference. And so all of these, and you'll notice it's remembering the things that are relevant to coffee, relevant to this, rather than just random things from the conversation. And so that all adds up to make it feel much more human, to feel much more natural. Now, hopefully you aren't talking to an AI while it's talking to your voicemail at the same time, but we can see how this all works together well when it does work well. All right, let's head back to my slides and let's wrap up. So like I said, this is not something we're keeping to ourselves. We've created a Twilio agent that you can go and you can play around, you can have fun with it. And the thing that we encourage, like, while we do want you to build with Twilio, we want to see just communications and the way people interact with technology continue to grow and get better and better. So these principles remain the same regardless of whether you're using Twilio or you're using different platforms. Maybe you're mixing and matching platforms together. We would love to see you build awesome interactions so that the next time something doesn't go well on a website and you've got to pick up the phone and call, you don't necessarily have the worst look on your face. You probably will leave that interaction with joy. Like Christmas, but with more Iron Man. Thank you so much for listening to my talk. I am not Iron Man, but my name's Nathaniel Okenwa, and it has been a pleasure sharing the stage in front of all of you. I really appreciate you. And now I'm going to pause for any questions. Going once, going twice. Thank you so much, everyone.